Somewhere in the shadows of the Persian Gulf, a billion-dollar warship is doing something it was never designed to do. It's moving at a crawl, almost cautiously, through some of the most dangerous waters on the planet. This isn't a high-speed chase. There are no incoming missiles on the radar and no enemy fleet on the horizon. Instead, the threat is far simpler, far cheaper, and far more terrifying. Naval mines. These are weapons that can cost less than a used civilian car, yet they possess the power to snap a massive warship in half in a matter of seconds. And right now, the United States Navy knows they are there, hidden, silent, waiting for a single vibration or a magnetic shift to trigger a catastrophe. But here's the part most people don't understand. This is not an accident. This is not a mistake. It is a calculated strategic decision. What is happening right now in the Strait of Hormuz is not just a military patrol. It is a high-stakes gamble where every scan and every second could trigger a chain reaction that the global economy simply cannot afford. The United States is willing to send its most advanced warships into a literal minefield because this is not just about clearing explosives. It's about reopening the world. To understand the gravity of the situation, we have to look at the terrifying technology behind these invisible killers, how they are actually cleared, and why this is the most dangerous equation in modern naval warfare. Before we talk about the ships, we have to talk about the geography. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow strip of water just 21 nautical miles across at its widest point, but don't let that number fool you. In reality, due to shallow waters and islands, there are only about 6 miles of usable shipping lanes for the massive tankers that move the world's energy. Through this tiny corridor flows nearly 20% of the world's petroleum and a third of all liquefied natural gas. It is, quite literally, the jugular vein of the global economy. If this vein is pinched, the lights go out in cities thousands of miles away. Right now, 2 of the U.S. Navy's most powerful assets are operating inside that corridor, the USS Michael Murphy and the USS Frank E. Peterson, Jr. These are Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, 9,000 tons of raw combat power. They are equipped with the Aegis combat system, vertical launch cells for long-range missiles, and later defenses designed for high-intensity warfare against jets and submarines. But here is the contradiction. These ships were not built to clear mines. They are not minesweepers. Traditional minesweepers have wooden or fiberglass holes to avoid magnetic triggers, but these destroyers are made of massive amounts of steel. And yet, they are there, moving slowly through a graveyard of hidden explosives. Their role isn't to hunt the mines, it's to make sure the specialized ships and drones that do hunt them survive long enough to finish the job. To understand the danger, you have to understand the weapon. Naval mines do not behave like missiles or torpedoes. They don't give you a radar warning. They don't emit heat. They just wait. In the world of mine warfare, there are 3 main types of threats these destroyers are facing. First, the contact mine. This is the classic design, a sphere with horns. If a ship's hull touches one of those horns, it's over. They are 19th century technology that still works perfectly in the 21st century. Second, and far more dangerous, are influence mines. These don't need you to touch them. They are essentially underwater computers. They listen for the specific acoustic frequency of a ship's propeller. They feel the pressure change as a 9,000-ton hull displaces water above them. Most importantly, they detect the magnetic signature of a steel ship. And finally, there are smart mines. These are the elite killers. They can be programmed to ignore small fishing boats or even small naval vessels, waiting specifically for a high-value target like an Arleigh Burke destroyer or a supertanker. They can even be programmed to stay dormant for days and only activate after a certain number of ships have passed safely by, creating a false sense of security. When a mine is buried in the silt or hidden in the cluttered seabed, it becomes invisible to traditional sonar. It generates no noise. It is the perfect asymmetric weapon, a $1,500 object waiting to destroy a $2 billion asset. So, how do you fight a ghost? The U.S. Navy uses a layered system of mine countermeasures. Since the destroyers are the shields, other assets act as the eyes. Above the water, MH-53E Sea Dragon helicopters sweep the surface. They tow massive sleds that emit magnetic and acoustic signals. The goal is to trick the mines into thinking a real ship is passing by, forcing them to detonate harmlessly. It's a high-speed game of bait and switch. But the real work happens in the deep. Unmanned underwater vehicles are launched from support ships. These drones scan the seabed using high-resolution side-scan sonar. They build a 3D map of every rock, every piece of trash, and every potential explosive. But detection is only 10% of the battle. The hardest part is classification. Is that a rusted oil drum, a rock, or an Iranian-made Sadaf mine? In a minefield, you cannot afford to guess. Once an object is confirmed as a mine, the Navy sends in the ROV, a remotely operated vehicle. This robot, tethered by a fiber optic cable, approaches the mine with extreme precision. It places a small, high-explosive neutralization charge next to it. The ROV backs away and a controlled detonation follows. One mine is gone, but in a field of hundreds, this process is agonizingly slow. And that slowness is exactly what the enemy wants. This brings us to the real danger of the Strait of Hormuz. In open water, a U.S. destroyer is a predator, fast, agile, and hard to hit. But in a minefield, the predator becomes the prey. Because the clearing process is so slow, the ships must move in predictable patterns. They follow strict lanes. They hold their positions for hours as drones scan the floor. In modern warfare, predictability is a death sentence. While the U.S. Navy is looking down at the mines, the observers are looking at them. Coastal radar stations, surveillance drones, and swarms of fast attack craft from the IRGC watch every move. They know exactly where the U.S. ships are. They can see the cleared lanes. This creates a terrifying multi-domain threat. If an enemy launches a swarm of drones or anti-ship missiles while a destroyer is trapped in a mine-clearing formation, the ship's ability to maneuver is gone. It can't turn sharply to dodge a missile if that turn takes it directly into an uncleared section of the minefield. This is why the destroyers are there. They provide the Aegis umbrella, keeping their radars locked on the sky and their guns trained on the horizon, ensuring that the mine hunters can work without being ambushed from above. At the end of the day, what's happening in the Strait reveals a fundamental truth about 21st century warfare. It isn't always about who has the biggest gun or the fastest jet. Sometimes it's about who can control the equation of risk. You don't need to sink the entire U.S. Fifth Fleet to win this battle. You only need to hit one ship. A single explosion, a single image of a burning tanker or a crippled destroyer, and the mission changes. Insurance companies will immediately cancel coverage for the region. Global oil prices will spike by 30 or 40% in a single day. The strait will effectively close, not because of a physical blockade, but because the risk has become unacceptable. That is the true power of the naval mine. It's not just an explosive, it's a psychological weapon designed to create doubt. The U.S. Navy's presence in these waters is a message to the world: we will manage the risk. But even with the most advanced sensors and the bravest crews, they cannot erase it completely. As long as one mine remains hidden in the silt, the most powerful navy in history is forced to play a game where one mistake costs billions. The question remains, can the U.S. truly make these waters safe, or are we just one click away from a global crisis? Power alone is not enough. The objective isn't just to destroy the enemy, it's to eliminate uncertainty. But in the Strait of Hormuz, uncertainty is the only thing that's guaranteed. Is the age of the billion-dollar destroyer being challenged by the age of the $1,000 mine? It is a question that the world's economy and its navies are still trying to answer.